From today on, Ethan, you're free. The voice was as cold as ice, a December wind cutting across my face. The woman talking was Isabella Sterling, the most beautiful CEO in Crestfall City, and, until about 5 seconds ago, my fiancée. Right now, she stood in the center of the glittering ballroom of the Sterling estate, a queen looking down on an ant. The piece of paper she'd just thrown at my face was our marriage contract. The Sterlings don't support freeloaders, she declared, her voice ringing with finality. This engagement is officially terminated. The room exploded. The guests' stares were like knives, all of them sinking into me, dripping with contempt, mockery, and a sick kind of satisfaction. I knew it. How could an orphan like Ethan Vance possibly marry the top beauty of Crestfall City? Seriously, he's been mooching off the Sterlings for 3 years. A dog would be more useful. The frog who tried to kiss a princess finally gets kicked to the curb. Serve him right. My mother-in-law, Karen Sterling, stormed over, her finger jabbing at my nose. You useless piece of trash. You jinx. If my father-in-law hadn't been going senile, he never would have let garbage like you through our door. Your engagement is off, so why don't you tuck your tail between your legs and get the hell out? Her shrill, venomous voice echoed through the grand hall. It was grating, designed to humiliate. I kept my head down, my shoulders trembling slightly. Everyone thought I was heartbroken, humiliated. A faint, almost invisible smirk touched Isabella's lips. She probably expected me to get on my knees and beg, to cling to her like a pathetic dog. After all, becoming the son-in-law of the Sterling family was a shortcut to heaven that countless men dreamed of. But they were all wrong. I lifted my head. My shoulders weren't trembling from grief. They were trembling because I couldn't hold back my laughter any longer. Ha ha ha. I roared with laughter, laughing so hard tears started to well up in my eyes. The entire ballroom fell silent. Everyone stared at me like I was a lunatic. Karen froze. You worthless trash. Have you gone insane? Isabella's perfect eyebrows knitted together, a flicker of shock in her eyes. This wasn't in her script. I finally managed to stop laughing, my gaze sweeping over every face in the room before landing on Isabella's flawless, ice-cold features. Isabella, you know what? I've been waiting for this day for 3 years. I bent down, picked up the contract from the floor, and, in front of everyone, tore it in two. Rear up, the sound was crisp, beautiful, like music to my ears. Thank you, Ms. Sterling, I said, flashing a wide grin that showed off all my teeth. You should have told me you were doing me a favor. I would have celebrated sooner. From this day forward, the sky's the limit. Without another word, I turned on my heel and strode out of the Sterling estate, leaving a sea of stunned faces in my wake. The moment I was outside, I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't touched in 3 years. The call was answered almost instantly. Young master, an old, emotional voice came through the speaker. You finally contacted me. I took a deep breath, pushing down the storm of emotions in my chest. Abernathy, the 3-year term is up. What have you found out about what happened back then? On the other end of the line, Abernathy's voice became impossibly respectful. We have the full story, young master. The fall of the Vance family 3 years ago was a joint effort by the 4 great families of Crestfall City, and the one leading the charge was the Sterling family. The Sterlings. I savored the name, a cold glint flashing in my eyes. Perfect. I had endured humiliation, acting as the Sterlings' live-in son-in-law for 3 years, suffering their scorn, all for this moment. Now that the contract was void, it was time to settle all our debts. Abernathy, unfreeze my assets, and call back the scourge. I want all of Crestfall City to pay for what they did to my family. Yes, young master. Stepping away from the Sterling estate, the cool night wind felt incredible on my face. 3 years of suppression, released in a single moment. I wanted to scream at the sky. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my bank. Dear Mr. Ethan Vance, a deposit of $10 billion was made to your account ending in 8888 on October 26th at 20:05. Your current balance is $10,000,000,000.00. I glanced at the long string of zeros and tugged at the corner of my mouth. This was just the tip of the iceberg of my global assets. Abernathy was as efficient as ever. I flagged down a passing cab. The Olympian Club, I said, giving the address. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror, his eyes lingering on my cheap clothes. He frowned. Kid, that's not the place for you. One night, there costs more than you'll make in 10 years. The Olympian Club, the most exclusive private club in Crestfall City. It wasn't open to the public, membership only. I just smiled faintly. Just drive. The driver shrugged, saying no more. He probably pegged me as some broke kid trying to get a peek at the high life. The car soon pulled up in front of a magnificent, brilliantly lit building. The security guards at the door were more impressive than the Sterlings, all decked out in sharp suits, built like linebackers with watchful eyes. I'd barely stepped out of the cab when two of them blocked my path. Sir, may I see your membership card? Their tone was polite enough, but their eyes were scanning me from head to toe, full of suspicion. I shook my head. I don't have one. I'm sorry, then you can't enter. The guard's voice turned to ice. He made a gesture that clearly meant get lost. Just then, the screech of tires tore through the air. A fire-red Ferrari screeched to a halt at the entrance. The door swung open and a flashy young man stepped out, his arm around a heavily made-up girl who looked like she'd been sculpted by an Instagram filter. It was Isabella's brother, Kyle Sterling. He saw me, blinked, and then burst out laughing as if he'd just witnessed the funniest joke in the world. Well, if it isn't my loser ex-brother-in-law. What's the matter? Just got kicked out, and now you're here to beg for scraps. The influencer at his side giggled, her eyes raking over me with disdain. Kyle, honey, is this that useless freeloader you were telling me about? Dressed like a hobo, and he dares to come here. Kyle puffed out his chest, pulling her closer. Babe, you don't get it. This guy's got a screw loose. My sister dumped him at the party tonight, and he acted like it was a good thing. Can you believe it? Hilarious. The other guards heard the commotion and moved closer, their expressions turning even more contemptuous. Kyle walked right up to me and patted my cheek, the ultimate insult. Ethan, take a good look. This is the Olympian Club, not a place for trash like you. Now get lost before you dirty the place up. I stared at him, my expression unreadable, my eyes growing colder by the second. Slap. The sharp crack of a palm hitting flesh echoed in the night. The force of my slap sent Kyle spinning around twice before he crumpled to the ground. He clutched his instantly swelling face, his eyes wide with disbelief. You dare hit me? The influencer shrieked, pointing at me. You loser. You're so dead. Kyle, call your guys. Have them kill him. The guards' faces changed. They immediately surrounded me, pulling out tactical batons. Kid, you got a death wish, starting trouble at the Olympian Club. Just then, a distinguished older man in a tailored silk suit rushed out of the club, his face etched with urgency. It was Mr. Kingsley, the director of the Olympian Club. In Crestfall City, he was a man whose influence could shake the very ground. When Kyle saw him, it was like seeing his savior. He scrambled over and grabbed onto the man's leg. Mr. Kingsley, you're here. This loser hit me. He's trying to break into the club. Arrest him. Break his legs. Mr. Kingsley frowned, about to speak, when his eyes landed on my face. In the next second, all the color drained from his cheeks. His pupils contracted violently, and his legs gave out. Thud, to the absolute horror of everyone present, Mr. Kingsley dropped to his knees right in front of me, pressing his forehead to the pavement. His voice trembled uncontrollably. I, William Kingsley, was not aware of your arrival, young master. My crime deserves 10,000 deaths. It was as if someone had hit the mute button on the entire world. The smug, vengeful look on Kyle's face froze, his mouth hanging open wide enough to fit an egg. The influencer's shriek died in her throat, her face ghostly white. The guards holding the batons were frozen like statues, cold sweat dripping from their foreheads onto the asphalt. Young master, Mr. Kingsley, the powerful director of the Olympian Club, a man respected by the entire city elite, was kneeling and kowtowing to the worthless freeloader who'd just been kicked out of the Sterling family. And he called himself a lowly subordinate. What the hell was going on? Was this a movie? I looked down at the kneeling William Kingsley, my voice calm. Get up. Thank you, young master. Kingsley scrambled to his feet, but kept his body bent in a deep bow, not even daring to raise his head. My gaze drifted to Kyle, who was still sitting on the ground, completely dumbfounded. This person, on your property, insulted me. Kingsley's heart nearly stopped. He practically screamed to the guards. "What are you standing there for? Drag this worthless piece of filth inside." 100 slaps to the face, and break one of his legs. "Yes, Mr. Kingsley." The guards snapped out of their stupor. Without a moment's hesitation, two of them rushed forward and hauled Kyle up like a sack of garbage. Kyle finally came to his senses and started squealing like a pig. "Mr. Kingsley, you got the wrong guy. I'm the young master of the Sterling family. He's the loser. He's an orphan. Mr. Kingsley, you can't do this to me. My sister is Isabella Sterling. My father is Marcus Sterling." But Kingsley was unmoved. If anything, his gaze grew even colder. The Sterlings? Who the hell were the Sterlings? For a man that he addressed as young master, one Sterling family was less than dust. 10 Sterling families were less than dust. "Gag him. Now." Kingsley barked. Soon, Kyle's screams were muffled into pathetic whimpers as he was dragged into the depths of the club. The influencer had long since fainted from fright, a dark patch spreading on her designer dress. I didn't spare them another glance as I walked into the club. Kingsley followed a step behind me, his posture the very definition of humility. "Young master, the scourge you requested are waiting." Good. I entered one of the most luxurious private suites. Inside, 10 men in black suits stood waiting, their presence as sharp and cold as a razor's edge. The moment I walked in, all 10 dropped to one knee in perfect unison, their voices thundering as one. "The Scourge reports for duty, Dragon Lord." These 10 men, every single one of them, were elite special ops veterans I had pulled from the bloodiest battlefields in the world. They were the blade I had personally forged. 3 years ago, when the Vance family fell, I sent them away. Now it was time for them to return. I sat on the sofa, my eyes passing over each of them. "Rise." "Yes, Dragon Lord." I looked at the leader, codenamed Ghost One. "Ghost One, I have 3 tasks for you. First, starting today, I want a full-scale assault on all of the Sterling Corporation's assets. I want them bankrupt in 3 days. Second, gather all the dirt on the 4 great families of Crestfall City. In 3 days, I want their reputations in ruins. Third, find out who betrayed the Vance family security protocols 3 years ago." A murderous glint flashed in Ghost One's eyes. "Consider it done, Dragon Lord." I nodded and waved my hand. "Go." The 10 figures vanished from the room as silently as they had appeared. Kingsley approached with a glass of vintage Bordeaux, offering it to me respectfully. "Young master, how should we handle the Sterling kid? Should we really break his leg?" I swirled the glass, the crimson liquid catching the light like blood. "Breaking one leg is getting off easy." I took a sip. "Strip him naked. Hang him from the entrance of the Sterling Corporation's headquarters. Let everyone in this city see what happens when you cross me." Kingsley shuddered and bowed his head low. "Yes, young master." The next morning, all of Crestfall City was in an uproar. Shocking. Kyle Sterling, heir to Sterling Corp., found stripped naked and hanging at company headquarters. Sterling Corp stock plummets at opening bell. Suspected hostile takeover by mystery conglomerate. Harrison family, one of the city's 4 great families, embroiled in massive tax fraud scandal. Chairman taken into custody. The news headlines hit the city's elite like a series of bombshells. Everyone could smell something dangerous in the air. A storm was brewing. At that moment, the Sterling estate was in utter chaos. Marcus Sterling, the family patriarch, smashed a priceless antique vase in a fit of rage, roaring at his wife Karen. "This is your fault. Look at the wonderful son you raised." The Sterling family is a laughingstock. Karen was sobbing. "How was I supposed to know this would happen? Kyle was just going to a party. How could he have offended someone so powerful?" Isabella sat on the sofa, her face a thundercloud. She hadn't slept all night, calling in every favor she had to find out who was behind the attack on her brother. The results terrified her. All leads pointed to the Olympian Club, but Mr. Kingsley was a brick wall, only saying that Kyle had offended someone he absolutely could not afford to offend. An entity that even Mr. Kingsley was terrified of. How powerful could they be? Sis, you have to get revenge for me. Kyle wailed from his bed, covered in bruises. It was Ethan. That loser must have hired someone. He knows people at the Olympian Club. Shut up. Isabella snapped, her patience worn thin. Don't I know what Ethan is? He's a worthless orphan. How could he possibly have that kind of power? But even as she said it, a sliver of unease crept in her heart. The image of Ethan walking away yesterday, his eyes filled with confidence, even a hint of mockery, wouldn't leave her mind. Could it? Could it really be him? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. How could a man who had been a pathetic freeloader in her house for 3 years suddenly transform into someone Mr. Kingsley would kneel before? It was more absurd than fiction. Just then, her phone rang. It was her assistant. Ms. Sterling, it's bad. Our stock is being targeted. It's hit the limit down for the second time today. All our business partners are terminating their contracts, and the banks are calling in our loans. We're not going to make it. What? Isabella shot to her feet, the blood draining from her face. Before she could even process that disaster, the financial news on the TV switched to a breaking report. We have breaking news. Following the Harrison family, the city's Morgan and Davies families have also been exposed for serious illegal activities. Key executives have been detained, and their assets are being seized. Boom! Isabella's mind went blank. Harrison, Morgan, Davies, and her own Sterling family. The 4 great families of Crestfall City. Overnight, 3 of the 4 had been toppled. This was no coincidence. A massive, unseen hand was orchestrating this entire affair, and its target was clearly the 4 great families. A terrifying thought, one she couldn't suppress, rose from the depths of her mind. 3 years ago, the Vance family was destroyed. I want all of Crestfall City to pay for what they did to my family. Could it be? No. Isabella shook her head frantically, not daring to think any further. She grabbed her car keys and bolted from the house. She had to find Ethan. She had to ask him face to face if he was behind all of this. I was enjoying a quiet breakfast at a roadside diner. A breakfast burrito and a black coffee. The simple, honest taste of real food was 1,000 times better than the exquisite but soulless meals at the Sterling estate. For the last 3 years, I'd been treated worse than a dog, always having to watch Karen's mood, eating the scraps left over by the staff. Now, finally, I could be myself again. A white Maserati screeched to a halt right in front of me. The door flew open, and Isabella, dressed in a sharp business suit and heels, rushed toward me. The usual cold arrogance was gone from her face, replaced by panic and exhaustion. Ethan! She stood before my table, her chest heaving. The other patrons stared, pointing and murmuring. Isn't that the CEO of Sterling Corp? What's she doing in a place like this? Who's that guy she's talking to? He looks normal. I calmly finished the last bite of my burrito, wiped my mouth with a napkin, and only then did I look up at her. Well, if it isn't the great Ms. Sterling, what brings you to my humble corner of the world? My tone was dripping with sarcasm. Isabella stared at me, her voice trembling. Kyle, was it you? And the company's stock, the Harrisons. Is all of this you're doing? I smiled. What if it is? And what if it isn't? I stood up, meeting her gaze. I looked at the face that had once fascinated me, a face I now found only pathetic. Isabella, in what capacity are you questioning me right now? As my ex-fiancée, or as the loser of this little game? Isabella swayed on her feet, her face growing even paler. She saw the answer in my eyes. It really was him. The man she had seen as utterly worthless possessed this kind of terrifying power. Overnight, he had crushed 3 major families and brought her own Sterling Corporation to the brink of collapse. She had always thought of herself as a goddess, a queen in control of everything, with me as nothing more than an ant at her feet. Only now did she realize that she was the pitiful ant, and he was a dragon with the power to shatter the heavens. Why? If he had this kind of strength, why did he endure 3 years of humiliation in her home? Why? Isabella mumbled, lost. Why would you do this? Why? I let out a cold laugh and leaned in close, speaking in a voice only she could hear. 3 years ago, on the night my family was destroyed, your father, Marcus Sterling, was the first one through the door. Boom! Isabella froze as if struck by lightning, her pupils shrinking to pinpricks. She stared at me in utter disbelief, her lips trembling, unable to form a single word. The Vance family, the top-tier family that had been wiped from Crestfall City overnight 3 years ago. You're Vance. Congratulations, you figured it out. I straightened up and patted her cheek, just as her brother had patted mine. Too bad there's no prize. The game is just getting started. I turned and walked away, leaving Isabella standing there like a hollowed-out statue amidst the bustling morning crowd, cold and utterly hopeless. After breakfast, I wasn't in a hurry to make my next move. A game of cat and mouse is much more fun when you play it slowly. I wanted them to crumble piece by piece in terror and despair. First, I went to a high-end men's boutique and replaced my cheap clothes. When I walked out in a perfectly tailored, handmade suit, my entire aura had changed. If I was a diamond in the rough before, now I was polished and dazzling. Passing a luxury car dealership, I casually bought a limited edition Bugatti Veyron. When a manager personally handed me the keys with a 90-degree bow, I barely glanced at him. Money, to me, was just a number. I took my new supercar for a spin, cruising aimlessly through the city. It was time to visit an old friend. I pulled up in front of a bar called the Obsidian Lounge. It was a notorious hotspot for the city's elite and also the turf of my former best friend, Mark Peterson. 3 years ago, he was the one who had drugged me and had me delivered to Isabella's bed, orchestrating my disastrous engagement to the Sterlings and trapping me under their watch. He was a nail the Sterlings had planted by my side. I walked into the bar, the thumping music and flashing lights a sensory assault. I went straight to the bar and ordered whiskey. Soon enough, a fat man in a loud shirt and a thick gold chain, with an arm around 2 beautiful women, swaggered over. It was Mark. He saw me and froze for a second, his eyes narrowing as he tried to place me. Well, look what the cat dragged in. If it isn't the great Ethan Vance, he sneered, recognizing me. What's the matter? The Sterlings finally kick you out? Got enough money for a drink here? The women with him giggled. Mark, honey, is this the pathetic freeloader you told me about? He's not bad-looking, but he definitely reeks of poor. I ignored them, sipping my whiskey. Mark, seeing that I wasn't rising to the bait, decided to get physical. He reached out to grab my collar. Hey, asshole, you deaf? I'm talking to you. Before his hand could touch me, it was caught in a grip of iron. Ghost One had appeared silently by my side. He stared at Mark, his face devoid of expression, as he steadily increased the pressure on his hand. Ag! Mark let out a piercing scream, his face turning purple. Let go! Let go! You're breaking my hand. The music in the bar screeched to a halt. All eyes were on us. I put down my glass and stood up, walking over to him. Mark, long time no see. You're Ethan? How did you? Mark was sweating profusely, his eyes filled with terror and confusion. Shouldn't I be wandering the streets like a stray dog? Why was I here? And who was this terrifying bodyguard? Surprised? I smiled, pulling a photograph from my pocket and tossing it in his face. It was a picture of him 3 years ago, furtively accepting a briefcase full of cash from Marcus Sterling. Mark's pupils shrank to pinpoints. This is impossible. Nothing's impossible. My smile vanished, my eyes turning to ice. You should have thought of this day when you sold me out. Ghost One, cripple him. Yes, Dragon Lord. With his orders given, Ghost One applied a final, brutal twist. Crack! The sharp sound of bone shattering echoed through the bar, followed by Mark's blood-curdling scream. I didn't look back as I walked out. The screams behind me were the sweetest symphony. This was only the beginning. Dealing with Mark put me in a much better mood. I was cruising back to the Olympian Club when my phone rang with an unknown number. I answered on speaker. Hello, is this Ethan Vance? A cool, slightly arrogant female voice asked. Speaking. Who is this? It's Chloe Chun. We were in high school together, remember? Chloe Chun. A fuzzy image formed in my mind. A girl with black-rimmed glasses who always sat in the corner, quiet and unassuming. She was the class brainiac, supposedly from a good family, but always kept a low profile. We barely ever spoke. Is there something you need? I asked flatly. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, the Grand Astoria Hotel. High school reunion. Are you coming? Chloe's tone had a commanding edge, as if my attendance wasn't optional. A reunion? I scoffed. Those things were just arenas for bragging and one-upmanship. The successful ones show up to be admired. while the ones who are struggling just sit in the corner and take the heat. With my reputation as a loser for the past 3 years, going would just be asking for humiliation. Not interested, I said bluntly. Chloe seemed taken aback by my immediate refusal. She was silent for a few seconds. Ethan, I know things haven't been easy for you these last few years, but we were all classmates. It's just a get-together. Who knows, maybe someone could help you find a job. Her voice was laced with a condescending, charitable tone. Find me a job? I almost laughed out loud. No, thank you. I was about to hang up. Wait, she said quickly. Brad Matthews will be there. Brad Matthews. The name made my eyes turn to ice. In high school, Brad was the class jock and a rich kid who used his family's money to bully everyone. I was his favorite target. He'd steal my lunch money, rip up my homework, and corner me after school with his friends to beat me up. The reason was simple. The most popular girl in our class had a small crush on me, and Brad, who was obsessed with her, hated my guts for it. I heard you ended up as a live-in son-in-law for the Sterlings. Chloe's voice came again, tinged with undisguised mockery. Brad was saying he wants to catch up at the reunion, show you what a real man is. He said he's going to grind you into the dirt like a dog, just so everyone can see what a pathetic loser you've become. My knuckles turned white on the steering wheel. Perfect. Brad Matthews. I'd almost forgotten about that fly, and now he was buzzing right into my web. Fina. We'll settle old and new scores tomorrow. All right, I said, my lips curling into a cold smile. I'll be there. After hanging up, a murderous glint flashed in my eyes. Tomorrow's reunion was going to be very interesting. The next evening, I drove the Bugatti Veyron to the Grand Astoria Hotel. I tossed the keys to the valet and walked straight into the reserve ballroom. The hall was already buzzing with people, gathered in small groups, talking loudly. The men were in tailored suits, the women in cocktail dresses, every face glowing with the confidence of success. My arrival went mostly unnoticed, until a sharp voice cut through the noise. Well, look who it is. Our class celebrity, Ethan Vance. All heads turned. A man in an Armani suit with slicked-back hair and a fleshy face was staring at me with a mocking grin. It was Brad Matthews. He was surrounded by a few of his old cronies, all of them eyeing me with malice. The room fell quiet as all eyes focused on me. Ethan Vance? Who's that? You know, the loser Brad used to beat up every day in high school. Oh, right. I heard he went to live with the Sterling family as their freeloader son-in-law. Ha, what a waste of space. I can't believe he has the nerve to show his face. If I were him, I'd have found a hole to crawl into. The whispers were a tide of contempt and ridicule. I acted as if I hadn't heard a thing, found an empty corner, and poured myself a drink. Brad frowned, annoyed by my composure. It felt like punching a pillow. He swaggered over, glass in hand, and looked down his nose at me. Ethan, heard the Sterlings kicked you out. What? Can't afford a meal now. Came to the reunion for free dinner. His lackeys howled with laughter. Just then, the ballroom doors opened again. Chloe Chen walked in with a few other women. She had shed her plain Jane look for a Chanel evening gown and flawless makeup. She carried herself with a cool elegance, like a flower on an unreachable mountain peak. She saw the commotion, frowned, and walked over. Brad, it's a reunion. Don't take it too far. Brad's eyes lit up when he saw her. Chloe, you're here. I was just joking around with an old friend. Everyone knew he'd been chasing her since high school, but she'd never given him the time of day. Chloe ignored him and looked at me, her expression complicated. Ethan, are you okay? I didn't answer. I just looked at her and asked coolly, did you invite me here just so I could be the entertainment? Chloe looked away, uncomfortable under my gaze. I just thought since we were all classmates. Huh. I let out a single cold laugh. Seeing Chloe defend me sent Brad into a jealous rage. He snatched the glass from my hand and smashed it on the floor. Ethan, you son of a bitch. I'm trying to be nice here. Who the hell do you think you are, talking to Chloe like that? He pointed a finger at my nose and roared. Today, if you crawl through my legs and bark 3 times like a dog, I'll let you go. Otherwise, I'll make sure you leave this place horizontally. The atmosphere instantly turned to ice. Everyone was watching with morbid glee, waiting for the show. Chloe's face paled, but before she could say anything, Brad shoved her aside. I slowly stood up, my gaze calm as I looked at the deranged man before me. Are you sure? Damn right I'm sure. Today, I'm going to. He never finished his sentence. I moved. Slap. Another crisp, clean slap. Harder and heavier than the one I'd given Kyle. Brad flew through the air like a broken kite, crashing over a table and sending plates and glasses shattering everywhere. He lay on the floor, half of his face swelling into a purple mess before our eyes. A few bloody teeth clattered onto the marble. Dead silence. Everyone was stunned into paralysis. The weakling who let everyone walk all over him in high school just hit Brad Matthews? And that hard. I walked over to him step by step and planted my foot on his chest, applying gentle pressure. Crack. The sound of a bone breaking was unmistakable. Brad let out an inhuman scream of agony. I leaned down and whispered in his ear, "Now, who's leaving horizontally?" You could have heard a pin drop in the ballroom. The only sound were Brad's pig-like squeals and sharp intakes of breath from the crowd. With my foot still on Brad's chest, I scanned the room. The same people who had been mocking and scorning me just moments ago were now staring at the floor, avoiding my eyes. Their faces were filled with fear and shock. Chloe Chun was as pale as a ghost, her hand over her mouth as she stared at the scene in disbelief. In her memory, Ethan Vance was a timid, insecure boy who took whatever abuse was thrown at him. But the man before her now was cold, ruthless, and radiated an aura of absolute power that made her heart pound with fear. Was this really the same person? Ack, my chest. My ribs are broken. Brad howled, his eyes full of hatred. Ethan, you're a dead man. My dad is the chairman of Matthews Corp. He's going to kill you. Matthews Corp? I said as if I'd just heard a joke. Are they a big deal? I pulled out my phone and, in front of everyone, dialed a number. Abernathy, is there a Matthews Corp in Crest Falls City? Yes, young master. A second-rate real estate developer. Assets are around $1.5 billion. Good, I said calmly. You have 10 minutes. I want them bankrupt. Yes, young master. I hung up. The people in the hall stared at me like I was an idiot. Ha ha ha, that's hilarious. Who does he think he is? Bankrupt Matthews Corp with one phone call. I think getting kicked out by the Sterlings finally made him snap. There's faking it, and then there's just being delusional. Brad, too, seemed to find a second wind. You're insane, Ethan. You think you're God? Bankrupt my family in 10 minutes? I'm waiting. Let's see how you die. I ignored him, my eyes fixed on the timer on my phone. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 5 minutes. The atmosphere in the ballroom grew stranger and stranger. At first, they thought I was a joke, but as the seconds ticked by, the terrifying calm on my face started to make them nervous. Just then, Brad's phone began to ring frantically. He struggled to pull it out, and his face went white when he saw the caller ID. It was his father, Jonathan Matthews. He quickly answered, sobbing into the phone. Dad, help me. Someone beat me up. My ribs are broken. You have to get your guys and kill him. But on the other end, his father's voice was a hysterical roar. You useless brat. Who the hell did you piss off? The company is finished. It's all gone. The stock crashed. The credit lines are frozen. The banks are calling in the loans. All our partners pulled out. We're bankrupt. We're bankrupt, you hear me? The line went dead. Brad held the phone, his mind completely blank. Bankrupt. How was that possible? In less than 10 minutes, his family's billion-dollar corporation was just gone. He looked at me, the hatred in his eyes replaced by a bottomless terror. It was like he was looking at a demon crawled up from the depths of hell. No. Impossible. That's absolutely impossible. I lifted my foot from his chest and looked down at him, a cruel smile playing on my lips. I said 10 minutes. Now, do you still want me to leave here horizontally? Thud. Brad's mind couldn't take the shock. His eyes rolled back in his head, and he passed out cold. My gaze swept over the rest of the room. Anyone else want to catch up? Silence. No one dared to even breathe. They all wished they could disappear into the floor. Finally, my eyes landed on Chloe Chen's pale, beautiful face. She stared back at me, her lips parted as if to say something, but no words came out. I walked over to her, looking at the woman I once wouldn't have even dared to dream about. You still want to find me a job? Chloe's body trembled violently, every last drop of color draining from her face. Her pride, her entire sense of self, was shattered under my gaze. She had always thought herself superior, someone who could benevolently dispense advice about my life with a sense of charitable pity. Now she understood just how laughable her family, her education, and her status were in front of me. Her eyes were a storm of emotions, shock, fear, and a sliver of regret she couldn't name. What if? What if back in high school, she hadn't been so cold to me? What if she had? But there were no what ifs. I had no interest in wasting another second on her. I turned to leave the sickening affair behind me. Just then, the ballroom doors were kicked open with a loud bang. A group of men in black suits swarmed in, flanking a flashy, furious-looking middle-aged woman. Who did it? Who dared to touch my son? It was Kyle's mother, my ex-mother-in-law, Karen Sterling. Isabella trailed behind her, her face a dark mask. It seemed they'd followed the trail from Kyle's assault and were here for revenge. Karen's eyes landed on Brad's unconscious form on the floor, and she mistook him for me. Her fury intensified. So there you are, Ethan. You ungrateful snake. We fed you for 3 years, and this is how you repay us? You injure my son, and now you're playing dead here. She lunged at me, her hand raised to strike my face. Slap, another crisp slap. But this time it wasn't me. It was Ghost One. He had appeared in front of me and sent Karen sprawling to the floor with a single backhand. Karen was stunned, clutching her face in disbelief. She pointed a trembling finger at me. You dare have your man hit me? This is rebellion. Utter rebellion. Isabella's face darkened. She rushed to help her mother up, then fixed me with a cold stare. Ethan, what is it you want? Even if our family wronged you, you can't resort to this. Assault, corporate sabotage. This is illegal. Illegal? I laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. You, Isabella Sterling, want to talk to me about the law. 3 years ago, when your 4 families conspired to devour my family's corporation with your dirty tricks, murdering my parents, why didn't you talk about the law then? When your father, Marcus Sterling, sent assassins after me to tie up loose ends, why didn't he talk about the law? When you trapped me in your house and humiliated me like a dog for 3 years, why didn't you talk about the law? With every question, I took a step forward. Isabella, overwhelmed by the sheer force of my presence, stumbled backward, her face growing paler with every word. Each sentence was a sledgehammer, smashing into her conscience. He endured all of that. Our family owed him so much. Now, I closed the distance between us, my voice colder than a grave. What right do you have to stand before me and speak of the law? Here, with me, my word is the law. Karen was still screeching from the floor. I don't care. You ruined our family. You hurt my son, and you're going to pay. We're calling the police. The police, I said, as if it were the funniest thing I'd ever heard. I pulled out my phone and tossed it to Isabella. Go on, make the call. I'd love to see who in this city has the authority to take me away from here. Isabella looked at the phone, then at my bottomless, dark eyes. Her fingers trembled, but she couldn't bring herself to dial the number. She had a gut feeling that if she made that call, the Sterling family would be beyond saving. Just then my phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. I answered. A sultry, almost lazy female voice purred on the other end. Hello, am I speaking with Mr. Ethan Vance? You are. Hello, my name is Serafina Rogue. I heard you're looking to be sponsored. I froze. What the hell? Sponsored? What is she talking about? Before I could respond, she continued. I'm outside the Grand Astoria Hotel in a red Aston Martin. I'll give you 3 minutes to come down and meet me. Don't be late. And then she hung up, without waiting for a reply. I stood there, phone in hand, completely bewildered. What new drama was this? Ignoring Karen's continued tirade and Isabella's complicated stare, I walked out of the ballroom. Curiosity got the better of me. When I reached the hotel entrance, I saw it. A stunning, fiery red Aston Martin Vanquish was parked in the most conspicuous spot. Leaning against the door was a woman. She wore a tight, black gown that outlined a breathtaking figure. Her hair was a black waterfall, her lips a slash of crimson. Her sly, fox-like eyes seemed to smolder. Just standing there, she was enough to drive any man insane. She was even more beautiful than Isabella. But where Isabella was a glacier, this woman was a volcano, hot, dangerous, and capable of burning you to ashes. She saw me, and her red lips curved into a playful smile. So you're Ethan Vance. Her eyes roamed over me, assessing me like a prize. Good physique, handsome face. You'll do. She pulled a pure black credit card from her purse and held it out to me. There's 100 million in here. A signing bonus. The pin is 6/8. From today on, you belong to me. I was speechless. Was this woman crazy? What did I ever say I wanted to be sponsored? I think you've made a mistake, I said, frowning. A mistake. Serafina raised an eyebrow. Weren't you the one at the Olympian Club last night who told the Sterling kid that breaking one leg is getting off easy and that you were going to find a rich woman to take care of you so you could just relax and enjoy life? I blinked. I remember now. I'd said something like that to piss off Kyle. But how did she know? The soundproofing at the Olympian Club was top-notch. Unless, who are you? My eyes narrowed, my guard instantly up. Serafina let out a throaty laugh, her body shaking with amusement. Who I am isn't important. What's important is that I've chosen you. She reached out a slender finger and tilted my chin up, her breath warm against my skin. So what do you say, handsome? Stick with me, and I guarantee you'll live a life of luxury. You can do whatever you want in this city. I pushed her hand away and took a step back. Saw the, not interested, 100 million? To me, that was pocket change. Serafina seemed surprised by my rejection. She froze for a second, then her smile widened. Interesting. You're the first man to ever turn me down. 100 million not enough. She pulled a set of keys from her purse and tossed them to me. The car is yours, too. An Aston Martin Vanquish. At least $500,000. Or maybe. Her gaze shifted to the hotel entrance behind me, where Isabella and Karen were now rushing out. You're still hung up on your ex-fiancé? Her eyes gleamed with mischief. When Isabella saw me with Serafina, especially the way Serafina was acting so familiar with me, her expression turned ugly. A strange, sour feeling churned in her stomach. Ethan, who? Who is she? She demanded, her voice laced with a jealousy she didn't even recognize in herself. Before I could speak, Serafina stepped forward and looped her arm through mine, pressing her soft body against me. She gave Isabella a triumphant smile. I'm his new boss, and his girlfriend. Ms. Sterling, yours past. Don't keep chasing after him. It's pathetic. You. Isabella was trembling with rage, pointing a finger at Serafina, but she was speechless. Karen reacted like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Ethan Vance, you philanderer. You just broke off your engagement with my daughter, and you've already found this. This harlot. How could you do this to Isabella? I frowned, about to push Serafina away, but she leaned in and whispered in my ear, Do you want your revenge? I know who betrayed your father. My body went rigid. I whipped my head around to stare at her. What did you say? I said. Serafina's smile didn't waver, but her eyes were suddenly deep and serious. I know who tampered with your father's car 3 years ago, and I know who leaked the Vance Corporation's most sensitive trade secrets, allowing the 4 families to destroy you. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was the answer I had been searching for 3 long years. Abernathy had found out it was the 4 families, but the identity of the inside man, the traitor, remained a mystery. The person who had betrayed us from within was the one I hated most of all. Who are you? My voice was raw. You want to know? Serafina's lips brushed against my ear. Come with me, and I'll tell you. I looked into her eyes, which seemed to see right through me, and hesitated. This woman was a mystery, and she was dangerous. She was a whirlpool, and getting too close meant risking being dragged down and destroyed. But the bait she was offering was something I couldn't refuse. Phoenix. I finally nodded. That's a good boy. Serafina smiled, satisfied, and planted a quick kiss on my cheek. Then, she pulled me toward the Aston Martin. Ethan, you can't go with her. Isabella rushed forward and blocked the car, her face pleading. She didn't know why, but seeing me about to leave with another woman felt like a knife twisting in her heart. She regretted it. She regretted not getting to know him 3 years ago. She regretted her coldness and cruelty over the past 3 years. Most of all, she regretted publicly breaking their engagement. She had pushed him away again and again until another woman could just swoop in and take him. Move, I said, my voice flat, my eyes holding no emotion. No. Isabella shook her head stubbornly, her eyes turning red. Ethan, please give me another chance. We can get back together. Get back together. I laughed as if it were the joke of the century. Isabella, have you forgotten? It was you who threw our contract in my face in front of the whole city, who said the Sterlings don't support freeloaders. It was you who, when I needed warmth the most, stabbed me with the coldest knife. What makes you think that I would ever come back to you now?" My every word was a dagger to her heart. The color drained from her face, and she looked like she was about to collapse. "You were blind then, mistaking a diamond for a stone. Now, you see the truth. I am someone you can never hope to reach. You missed your chance, and you'll never get another one." Serafina started the car, the engine roaring to life. "Hold on tight, my little plaything." The Aston Martin shot forward like a bolt of red lightning, swerving around the heartbroken Isabella and disappearing down the road. In the rearview mirror, her figure grew smaller and smaller, until finally she collapsed to her knees, letting out a cry of pure despair. Her mother, Karen, was jumping up and down, screaming curses. None of it mattered to me anymore. As the car sped down the highway, Serafina glanced at me, feeling sorry for her. I shook my head. "I just find it pathetic." "It is pathetic," Serafina said with a smirk. "Some women only learn to value what they had after they've lost it. Too bad life doesn't come with a rewind button." She paused. "Now let's talk business. Fina, who are you, and what do you want from me?" I asked directly. "You'll find out who I am soon enough," she said cryptically. "As for what I want..." She slammed on the brakes, pulling the car over at a secluded scenic overlook on a mountaintop. She unbuckled her seatbelt and leaned over, pinning me against the seat. Our faces were inches apart. "What I want is simple." Her red lips moved slowly toward mine. "I want you." I'll admit, for a second, my heart skipped a beat. This woman was a siren, every move a fatal temptation. Just as her lips were about to touch mine, I turned my head. Her kiss landed on my cheek. Serafina blinked, then let out another low, throaty laugh. Well, you're more innocent than you look." She sat back in her seat and started the car again. "All right, I'll stop teasing you." Her expression turned serious. "Let's get down to it. The man who betrayed your father 3 years ago was the person he trusted most in the world. Your uncle, Arthur Vance." Boom. My mind went completely blank. Arthur Vance? My uncle? The man who had doted on me since I was a child, who treated me like his own son? Impossible. That's impossible. I yelled. After my parents died, my uncle was hunted by their enemies while trying to protect me. He's been missing ever since. He would never betray my father. Missing? Serafina scoffed. He took the $10 billion he siphoned from the Vance Corporation and ran off to live in luxury overseas with your darling, venomous cousin, Amelia. As for why he did it, the reason is simple. He was jealous of your father's success. He was tired of living in his shadow. He wanted to be the new master of the Vance family. She pulled a folder from the glove compartment and tossed it into my lap. Here, this is the paper trail of the assets he transferred, along with photos of him and your cousin living it up abroad. See for yourself. With trembling hands, I opened the folder. Bank statements, transfer records, numbers so large they were staggering. They all confirmed Serafina's story. And the photos, they were like knives twisting in my heart. There was my missing uncle on a yacht, surrounded by beautiful women. And there was my sweet, gentle cousin Amelia, dressed in designer clothes, smiling as she drove a limited edition sports car. Their happiness was built on the blood and ruin of my entire family. Arg! I let out a choked roar and slammed my fist against the passenger window. The reinforced, bulletproof glass spiderwebbed with cracks. The family I had loved and respected were the architects of my destruction. My 3 years of suffering had been a complete and utter joke. Hate, pure, undiluted hate flooded my veins. Arthur Vance, Amelia Vance. I gritted out their names, each word dripping with venom. I swear, I will make you pay for this in blood. Serafina watched me silently, offering me a tissue. When my breathing had returned to something resembling normal, she spoke. You want revenge? I can help you. What are your terms? I asked, my eyes still red. I knew there was no such thing as a free lunch. My terms are simple, she said, her eyes locking with mine. I want you to be my man and help me take control of the Rogue family. The Rogue family? I repeated, confused. In the capital. The Rogue family. The capital's Rogue family. I sucked in sharp breath. They were one of the most powerful families in the entire country, a dynasty of wealth and influence. The four great families of Crestfall City wouldn't even be fit to polish their shoes. This woman was one of them. I'm the family's illegitimate daughter, she said with a self-deprecating smile. I was only brought into the fold after my mother died. But my father, my so-called brothers and sisters, they never treated me like family. To them, I was just a pawn to be married off for an alliance. I won't accept that. Her eyes hardened with determination. Everything the rogues have should be mine. I'm going to crush every single person who ever looked down on me. And you, she said, her gaze intense, are the perfect piece, the perfect ally, to help me achieve that. I looked at her, and in her eyes, I saw the same fire that burned in me, the same ambition, the same refusal to be broken. We were the same kind of people. All right, I nodded. I'll help you. But Arthur and his daughter are mine to deal with personally. Deal. Serafina extended her hand. I took it. Two cold hands, both burning with the desire for vengeance, clasped together. From that moment on, we were allies. A much larger storm was about to break, this one over the capital itself. Back at the Olympian Club, I immediately had Ghost One begin tracking Arthur and Amelia's exact location overseas. Serafina, in turn, started using her own intelligence network to assist me. Our alliance was brutally efficient from the very start. 3 days later, Crestfall City had been turned upside down. After a catastrophic stock crash, a credit freeze, mass contract cancellations, and a wave of executive resignations, the Sterling Corporation finally collapsed. This morning, it officially filed for bankruptcy. Marcus Sterling's hair turned white overnight. Unable to handle the shock, he suffered a massive stroke and was now in a coma in the ICU. Karen, for embezzling a huge sum of company funds, was arrested and was now facing a long prison sentence. The once mighty Sterling family had fallen. Isabella, the former Ice Queen CEO, now had nothing. She sold the mansion and the luxury cars, using the last of her money to pay for her father's exorbitant medical bills. I saw her again in a hospital hallway. She was wearing a simple white t-shirt and jeans, her face bare of makeup, looking exhausted and pale. She saw me, and her expression was a mix of emotions. Her lips moved, but she just lowered her head like a child who had been caught doing something wrong. "Are you here to laugh at me?" she asked, her voice hoarse. I shook my head. "I'm here to give you something." I handed her a document. "What's this?" she asked, taking it hesitantly. 10% of the original shares of the Vance Corporation, I said calmly. 3 years ago, my father intended to give this to you as an engagement gift. It's yours now. Isabella trembled, staring at the document in disbelief. The Vance Corporation, even though it was gone, everyone knew what a colossal empire it had been. 10% of its shares was a fortune beyond imagination. Why? She looked up, tears welling in her eyes. "You hate us so much." "I hate Marcus Sterling." "Not you," I said. My gaze was calm, holding neither love nor hate. "You didn't know what happened back then. As for the 3 years of humiliation you put me through, let's just call it even. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other." With that, I turned and left. Isabella watched my back as the tears finally fell. She knew, with absolute certainty, that she had lost me forever. The man she had discarded like trash now stood at a height she could only dream of reaching. And she didn't even have the right to say she was sorry. A mischance is an eternal one. This, perhaps, was the ultimate punishment for her blindness. I walked out of the hospital and got into Serafina's car. She handed me a new file. Found them. I opened it. Inside were the detailed addresses and recent schedules for Arthur and Amelia Vance in America. A tidal wave of killing intent exploded from me. Ghost One, here, assemble the Scourge. We're leaving. Target, the United States. I want them to pay for what they did to my parents, in despair and terror. Yes, Dragon Lord. In a lavish seaside villa in the U.S., Arthur Vance was lounging on a beach chair, enjoying the sun while 2 blonde beauties fed him grapes. Not far off, his daughter Amelia was zipping across the water on a jet ski, her happy laughter carrying on the wind. "Dad, look, I caught a huge fish." Arthur roared with laughter. "Excellent. That's my girl. We'll have a seafood feast tonight." He picked up a glass of red wine and took a satisfied sip. Ever since he had orchestrated his older brother's death and fled the country with the family fortune, he had been living like a king. Wealth, women, he had it all. As for his loser nephew, Ethan, the one he'd left behind to be a freeloader, he'd long since forgotten about him. He was just an ant he could crush at any time. Just then, a man who looked like a butler ran over, his face pale with panic. "Sir, trouble. There are people outside." He never finished. A bullet, fired from a distance, tore through his head. Crack! Blood sprayed through the air. The wine glass fell from Arthur's hand, shattering on the stone patio. He shot up, his eyes wide with terror, as he looked toward the villa's entrance. 100 soldiers in black tactical gear, armed with military-grade weapons, were surrounding the entire estate. They moved with a chilling, deadly efficiency. On the chest of each soldier was the same insignia, a flaming dragon's head, the scourge. Arthur's pupils shrank. All the color drained from his face. He knew that symbol. It was the elite team his brother had personally created, but they were supposed to have been disbanded 3 years ago. Why were they here? As he stared in horror, a figure he never thought he'd see again emerged from the ranks. The man wore an immaculate suit, his posture as straight as a pine, his eyes as cold as a blade. "It was me, Ethan." Arthur stammered, pointing a trembling finger, his face a mask of disbelief. How are you here?" Amelia, on the jet ski, saw what was happening and spun the vehicle around, trying to flee toward the open ocean. "Running." I gave a cold smirk as Ghost one-handed me a Barrett M82 A1 sniper rifle. I raised it, aimed, and squeezed the trigger. Boom! The massive round screamed across the water and slammed into the jet ski's fuel tank. A deafening explosion ripped through the air, sending a column of fire and smoke into the sky. The jet ski was vaporized. Amelia didn't even have time to scream. "Amelia!" Arthur watched his daughter die and let out a heart-wrenching shriek. His eyes turned bloodshot, and he charged at me like a mad beast. "Ethan, I'll kill you. I'll kill you." I casually lifted my foot and kicked him in the chest. Crack! His ribs shattered. He flew backward and hit the ground hard, blood pouring from his mouth. I walked over to him, step by step, and crouched down, tapping his twisted, pain-filled face with the barrel of the rifle. "Uncle, long time no see. I told you I'd be back to take what's mine. Well, here I am." You're a demon. A demon." Arthur stared at me, his eyes filled with a terror that consumed him. He couldn't comprehend how the weak, useless nephew from 3 years ago had become this terrifying force of nature. "A demon." I smiled, a cruel, vicious smile. "Compared to you and your daughter, I have a long way to go. Go to hell. My parents have been waiting for you." I didn't waste any more words. I pulled the trigger. Bang! Arthur Vance's head exploded like a watermelon. The debt was paid. I slowly stood up and looked at the sky, and for a moment I thought I could see my parents smiling down at me. I took a deep breath, dropped the rifle, and turned to walk towards Serafina, who was waiting for me. She was leaning against her car, just as she had been when we first met, her lips like fire, her eyes full of secrets. "Is it over?" she asked. "No," I said, walking up to her and taking her hand. "It's just getting started." The scores in Crestfall City were settled, but in the capital, a much bigger game was waiting for us. I looked at Serafina, and she looked at me. In her eyes, I saw the same fire, the same ambition that burned in my own. "Are you ready?" she asked. "Always," I replied. Serafina smiled, a smile that could topple nations. She leaned in and kissed me. This time, I didn't turn away. End.